Pledge of Allegiance. Would all those who wish and are able please rise and remain standing?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Kindly remain standing, please, and offer a moment of silence to remember and honor those who have sacrificed for our country and those in our community who have lost loved ones recently. In particular, Longmeadow Fire Department retired Captain William Bill DeFord III and Recycling Center Attendant Michael Allen Clark. Thank you. So I welcome you to our town meeting, our town's legislative body, and to any first-time voters and or visitors, I offer a very special welcome. In particular, would you please help me in welcoming our interim town manager, Jay Moynihan? This is his first town meeting in Longmeadow. So as usual, I have some general housekeeping announcements and rules of procedure before we head to our 2 articles tonight. In the event of a fire alarm or any other emergency, the exits are clearly marked in the back and in the front here. Should you need a hearing assistive device, inform a teller, somebody wearing one of these lanyards, or someone at the clerk's desk, and we shall loan you one. The back of the warrant includes the list of procedures that we'll follow, and the rules basically follow the Mass General Laws, the town charter, our bylaws, and the book Town Meeting Time. To speak, wait for recognition from me, the moderator, and then state your name and address. All remarks must be addressed to the moderator. Motions to limit or extend debate require a 2/3 majority. And our bylaws require that if residents want to stop debate, they can only move to do so after 5 have spoken in favor or 5 against, and the presumption that these are speakers from the floor, not the main movers or of a motion or any opposition. And there are 3 microphones in the center front here, and I shall call on people in turn. Citizens wishing to speak should line up at each microphone, and I'll alternate among them. And preference will be to those who have not yet had a chance to speak. So one of the microphones is green, marked for in favor of a motion, the other marked red for those who are opposed, and those for speakers who are opposed to a motion. The third is yellow for anybody who has a question or wants to make a motion. There's no cross-examination, so if you have multiple questions, please ask them all at once, and I'll direct the questions to those who can answer them. Comments from the center microphones are about 2 to 3 minutes. All remarks should be concise and civil. And remember that deliberation involves sharing of accurate, relevant information, weighing of advantages and disadvantages, and ought to end when no new information is available. So kindly be brief, be civil, be relevant. And if you wander from your point or become repetitive, I will encourage you in a gentle way to come to the point. So, the rules of procedure enable certain kinds of talk and prohibit others. We speak to the issue, we do not speculate on motivations, avoid referencing people by name, and do not praise or impugn anyone's character. And should there be a need to call someone to order, I will do that, and you will be directed to come to order. And when we are ready to vote on a motion, I will ask that the doors be shut, and then we'll have people vote just in this room. On Article 1, which requires a 2/3 majority, we're going to have a 2-person presentation, and then we'll have the planning board recommendation on that motion. If you have any questions about rules of procedure, obviously ask, but come to the microphone rather than shouting them out from the seat. I now recognize Michelle Morantz for Article 1. Oh, sure.
My name's Michelle Morantz. Can everybody hear me? Yes? All right. I live at 117 Rugby Road. And I move in terms of the article as written.
Is there a second? Second. You may speak to it, Ms. Morantz.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michelle Morantz, and I'm chair of the Longmeadow Pipeline Awareness Group. On behalf of our group, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight, particularly those who've traveled long distances to have their voices heard on this important issue. Years ago, the comedian Lily Tomlin said, "When I was younger and saw something bad happening, I always wondered, why doesn't somebody do something about that? Then I realized I was that somebody." I think Tomlin's statement explains why you're here tonight, and I want you to know that we're grateful you decided to do something. My job this evening is to present background information about Article 1, the zoning bylaw change that will be voted on, an amendment that would ban the construction and use of an industrial facility in any Longmeadow residential zone. If there are questions about the language of the actual bylaw, Bruce Colton, a member of Longmeadow's Planning Board, will address those issues after I speak, either in his opening remarks or from the floor. Although we're voting tonight on a proposal that solely affects Longmeadow, I'd like you to know that this action is part of an area-wide effort that began 18 months ago when Columbia Gas issued their 5-year reliability plan and targeted 7 communities. Not just Longmeadow, but Springfield, West Springfield, Agawam, Holyoke, Northampton, and East Hampton. Since the inception of their gas expansion plan, Northampton City Council and Holyoke's Mayor Morse have both rejected expanding pipelines in their communities. Now it's our turn to just say no. Here's what Tennessee and Columbia Gas plan on building in Longmeadow, and we've provided you this evening with a map, a handout as you entered the building, several outbuildings, one to house the Tennessee Gas metering pipe and flange, and three housing Columbia Gas's odorizing building, regulator building, and boiler building. There will also be an above-ground configuration of pipes and vents closer to Hazardville Road, with the entire facility surrounded by chain link fencing and abutting 3 homes on Fairway Drive. As if that weren't enough expansion, Columbia Gas also plans on attaching a 200 PSI high-pressure pipeline to this facility that will run north along Shaker and Laurel Streets, ending in a Springfield neighborhood. The addition of this pipeline will more than triple the pressure of the current line. Despite Columbia's insistence that this project is for our own good, its primary purpose is to push gas north to markets that they hope to develop. The reality is that 75% of Longmeadow homes already have gas power, and we are 97% developed as a town. With continued energy savings efforts on our part, the prospect of a dramatic demand for increased gas usage in Longmeadow is simply not in the cards. And it's important to remember that, as with any construction efforts, the cost of the project will be placed on the ratepayer. Some of you may have recently received this glossy 6x11 postcard that fails to mention Columbia's plans for the high-powered pipeline. In fact, the card explicitly states that Columbia Gas's plans are, quote, not about expanding our system, unquote. Why wouldn't they identify the Longmeadow project as expansion, and why have they chosen not to mention the new pipeline? At best, this is a huge omission, but at worst, it's a calculated effort to muddy the waters when it comes to their actual intentions. That the card also identifies the project as one that will, quote, lessen its environmental impact, unquote, is particularly galling. Tell that to the homeowners in the immediate neighborhood and to the children walking by the facility as they return from school. The card also states that Columbia is concerned with making our gas supply more reliable. This is a worthy goal, but one that should begin with plugging leaks and replacing, not expanding, pipes. We commend the repair work that's taken place over the past year, but we're also aware that there are leaks in Longmeadow that remain ignored. In our neighborhood, for example, we've experienced a gas leak for over a month that's been reported multiple times, only to have neighbors be told that Columbia's repair will take place, quote, sometime before the winter. Until then, our neighborhood will be exposed to pollutants, the leak could get worse, and ratepayers will literally foot the bill for that leaked gas until it's repaired. In fact, it is Columbia's maintenance record that continues to be a source of concern. Why are they building new pipelines when the current system hasn't been thoroughly secured? And if Columbia really cares about, quote, safe delivery of gas, why are they citing the industrial project in the center of a neighborhood surrounded by homes not far from an elementary school? We believe that other siting options are available to them. Though these alternative sites may be more expensive and less convenient for Columbia, we contend that a company that truly cares about its customers' safety would respect international setback standards and choose a more remote location. Right now, the proposed site definitely violates safety standards. An additional concern is that of pipeline ruptures and explosions. We know that the Merrimack Valley tragedy was the result of human error and a pressurization issue. But are we aware that these issues persist to this day? This July 3rd, a gas explosion leveled a North Carolina house, killing the owner. On July 5th, an explosion occurred in a Nevada dorm that injured 8 people. And let's not forget the July 6th gas explosion in a Florida mall that left 23 people injured. More recently, on August 1st, a 30-inch gas line in Kentucky ruptured, creating an explosion over an area the size of a football field, killing 1 person and injuring 5. The next day, a Pennsylvania home was leveled due to a missing gas pressure device, while back in Massachusetts, a gas line ruptured outside of the State House on August 5th, with people waiting 1.5 hours before the repair crew arrived. 1 week later in East Hampton, a gas line also ruptured, with both Massachusetts events due to human error when construction workers cut into gas lines. And as long as we're addressing safety, scientists have long acknowledged that gas fuel leaks at every point along the transmission route, at the wellhead, at pipe joints along the way, at meter and compressor stations, and at storage tanks. Scientists have also noted that in Massachusetts, more than half of the gas we use is fracked gas that contains contaminants like lead and benzene. How is it in our best interest to expand gas infrastructure that will leak and exacerbate our area's poor health quality, particularly affecting the health of young children and seniors? According to a recent article in Boston College Magazine, fatalities related to outdoor air pollution are now at 7 million per year, and they are on track to double in 30 years unless we do something to fight the trend. And this something surely doesn't involve expanding gas infrastructure. And then there's the additional concern regarding gas fuel that relates to the fact that we're in the middle of a global climate emergency brought on by the destructive impact of fossil fuel usage on our environment. We've all seen the dramatic videos of Greenland's melting ice pack and torrents of water rushing into the sea. What many of us don't know, however, is that methane, the colorless and odorless component of gas, contributes to a warming climate 60 times more powerfully than carbon dioxide. In an era of melting ice packs and starving polar bears, this fact makes gas expansion equally unwise. Finally, there's the issue of extreme weather events that are linked to climate change. Just look at the intensity of yesterday's storm that hit Longmeadow without warning. A storm like this is becoming the new normal as extreme weather events become increasingly common. In the
Please
past
keep to
7
the-
years, there
Please
have
just
been...
keep to the bylaw.
Pardon me?
Just keep to the bylaw.
Yeah, okay. Okay, all right. I will skip all of that and talk about in my last paragraph, and as we start to think globally, we need to act locally. We don't need an energy system of the past. We need to retain our identity as a residential community. We need to preserve our homeowners' property values. We need clean, renewable energy, not an expansion of a system that threatens our health and the health of our planet. Tonight, please be that person who does something to make things better. Vote yes on Article 1 and say yes to putting our health and our future before their profits.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, if we could cease with the... I didn't do my usual reminder because we're not in the gym, but please avoid clapping because it does take up a lot of time. Our next speaker with the balance of the time is Mr. Friedman, who had asked to do a presentation. Is he available? Mr. Friedman, you may come to the center mic and have the balance of the time. There's the mic. You may stand in the front.
Kurt Friedman, 24 Ridge Road.
You need to hold the mic right up to your... Yeah, there you go.
Kurt Friedman, 24 Ridge Road. Welcome. I put together a brief presentation to allow people to understand the significance of the setbacks that are recommended by national and international standards. Next slide, please. It's noted that the primary objective of a registered professional engineer is to hold paramount the public safety, health, and welfare. And that is my goal tonight as a citizen. I am not being paid for this. I'm not being paid by the Citizens Group. This presentation is done independently based on my own professional ethics and what I feel is in the best interest of our community. It's also noted on December 31st, our governor required that professional engineers review all infrastructure systems in the state. And this is the fallout of the experience in Lawrence and Andover. Next slide, please.
The presentation wasn't on an automatic timer, so we don't have control over that.
Okay. The standards I'm citing tonight are by Dr. Charles Rhodes, Mark Stevens, and the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Next, please.
The presentation that you sent us came on an automatic timer.
Oh, did it? Okay.
We
okay.
cannot make any changes
Okay.
to the presentation you gave.
Okay. This is the area where the metering station is going. This is showing the gas pipeline that's proposed to run up through Long Meadow.
If you'd like, you can just continue with the presentation
Okay.
and the slides will advance on their own.
If it would be easier, I have the slides on the same.
We cannot,
Okay.
we had to do with what you gave us.
Okay. I wasn't aware this was automatic. This shows the Wolf Swamp School, and this is where the metering station is. We have our existing 24-inch and 30-inch gas pipelines, and this is the proposed 16-inch gas pipeline. That is the purpose of the metering station, to provide a spur or a connection point to the proposed 16-inch gas pipeline. And by the way, we don't know exactly where that's going through town. And I think that's an important issue. As Long Meadow residents, we should know where that high-pressure gas line is going. This is the proposed metering station. Here's the 24-inch and 30-inch high-pressure gas lines that will be that the metering station will tie into. It's noted that the Wolf Swamp neighborhood is a high-consequence area. And it's defined as 46 or more buildings intended for human occupancy, pipeline within 100 yards of either building or a playground, occupied by 20 more persons at least 5 days a week, and where we have a potential impact radius of 660 feet. So where this metering station is going is within this zone. We also have Wolf Swamp School nearby. And this is a diagram right from the American Society of Mechanical Engineers showing a school. The yellow circles show where, in the event of a pipe rupture and fire, that any building located within that radius would immediately ignite. Where Wolf Swamp School is, should there be an incident there, everyone in that building would likely perish. The blue circle shows also an area where ignition is probable. So this tells you really the power of and the concern for these high-pressure gas lines is that when things do go wrong, they do go terribly wrong. The only method we have to protect ourselves is to create a greater distance. Should there be an incident, the fire department could not do anything to put this fire out. When these incidents happen, they simply burn themselves out. There's no way to put these fires out with any type of fire engine or water. No one can get near this. If you walked within the yellow circle, your skin would peel off of you almost instantaneously.
1 more minute.
The subject metering station, an additional 16-inch gas pipeline, should not be in proximity to Wolf Swamp School. The safety, health, and welfare of our community are better protected with an improved natural gas pipeline and setback distances. And this is from a different presentation, but the Article 1 is in the community's best interest. I would also ask that there should be a meeting with a gas company to find an improved location for the metering station, and we should also know where the proposed natural gas pipeline can safely go through our community. It's been suggested that the metering station be put way at the west end of town, maybe bordering the conservation area. Anyway, that's my presentation. If any questions.
Thank you. Now we'll take the planning board recommendation. Mr. Colton?
I'm Bruce Colton, 91 Whitman Road, member of the Long Meadow Planning Board. By a unanimous vote of 3-0, the Planning Board recommends that the town meeting adopt this amendment to the town's zoning bylaws. The purpose of the amendment is to ban the installation and use of meter stations, take stations, city gates, and connected facilities from residential zones in Long Meadow. The latter 2 sections of the proposed amendment are necessary to maintain the status quo under which these facilities are allowed in the agricultural and business zones of Long Meadow. The amendment does not expand the allowed uses in those zones. It is the strong belief of the Planning Board that these facilities have no business being located in or adjacent to residential neighborhoods, close to schools and playgrounds. Should it be necessary to locate these facilities in town, the agricultural zone is by far the most appropriate location. In addition to unintended gas leaks, metering stations, such as the one proposed for Long Meadow, relieve gas pressure by regularly blowing off gas into the air we breathe. Children and the elderly are particularly vulnerable to these regularly released contaminants. Children are at risk of an increase in allergies, respiratory infections, asthma, and learning disabilities. The elderly will risk an exacerbation of COPD, congestive heart disease, myocardial infarction, and diabetes. The drumbeat of recent gas facility leaks, explosions, and deaths are becoming nearly as ubiquitous as mass shootings in our society. In at least one instance, people have already moved to avoid having their children in the Wolf Swamp Road School District. Individuals and families should not be forced to live in fear for their family's health, safety, and deteriorating property values. The Planning Board strongly endorses this amendment to our zoning bylaws.
Thank you. Are there any other boards that would like to provide any recommendations? Seeing none, then we'll go directly to the floor. The floor is open for discussion. And if there's no discussion, we can come directly to a vote. Okay, ready to vote. So I'd ask that everyone sit down if you're wanting to vote. This motion requires a 2/3 majority. And I'll call for the vote once everybody is seated. So if you could sit down, please have a seat. Would all those in favor of the motion on Article 1 please raise your green cards? Thank you. Would all those opposed to the motion on Article 1 please raise your green cards? The motion carries by 2/3 majority declaration affirmative vote. We now come to Article 2. I recognize Marie Angelides.
I move to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 or a greater or lesser sum for the purpose of softening the incline of the raised crosswalk located at the corner of Grassy Gutter and William Street, or take any other action relative thereto.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it, Ms. Angelides.
There have been many proponents and opponents of the current construction of the raised crosswalk at the corner of Grassy Gutter and William Street. This article will give town meeting a chance to debate the current construction, and if so decided, appropriate funds to lessen the incline of the crosswalk.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation, please.
The Finance Committee voted not to recommend this article.
It's Maury Garrett.
Yes, Maury Garrett, 133 Tedford Drive.
Thanks.
I am also the Finance Committee Chair. I'd just like to begin by apologizing for my appearance. I came here directly from coaching our 3rd and 4th graders in football. My position on the Finance Committee.
I assure you, your appearance does not matter in terms of what you have to say. That matters much more. Thank you.
Just meant I meant no disrespect to the town or to this meeting. The Finance Committee considered this proposal and voted it down 3 consecutive times. 2 of the times were unanimous, voting this proposal down. The first time the Finance Committee considered this was in May, when we were given a reserve fund request of approximately $19,000 to replace the speed table based on an engineer's best estimate of the cost of the project. Based on numerous unanswered questions, including whether the speed bump was functioning as intended, whether it was compliant with DOT regulations, and so on, the Finance Committee elected not to act on it at that time until we could receive additional information. Subsequent to that, we were, in June, asked again to approve the transfer of approximately $28,000 to revise this same speed table based on an actual quote from a contractor, and the committee voted unanimously to reject that transfer after having been informed that the speed table was in fact functioning as it was intended and was properly constructed. Specifically, that it was slowing traffic at the subject intersection. Finally, in July, a new reserve fund request was made, again asking the Finance Committee to reconsider approving the funds to soften the speed table due to a new contractor's quote for the project. However, this quote was even higher, of approximately $38,000. Members of the Select Board were invited to attend the Finance Committee's deliberations and offer their insights on the project and answer questions. 3 members of the Select Board did attend, along with the town manager. During this meeting, it was revealed that although there had been several complaints from Long Meadow residents when the speed table was initially installed, these complaints diminished significantly after the flashing lights and the digital speed displays were added to alert motorists of the presence of the speed table. Based on that, and also possibly that drivers have grown more familiar with the location of the speed table over time. Based on these factors, the Finance Committee voted again not to approve the funds transfer. Finally, the Finance Committee met again at the end of July to vote on this warrant article. The Finance Committee considered all these previous issues, concerns, and developments regarding the proposed project, including information that the original installation of the speed table and its sister companion speed table costs approximately $250,000 to put in the first place, including the flashing warning light sign and digital speed indicator, as well as the companion speed table on the other side of the school. After thorough deliberation of all the issues above, the Finance Committee again concluded that the speed table was properly functioning and installation at a crucial location, and given the escalating cost to remove and replace it, also given the fatal accident that occurred at the location, $40,000 could be better spent on other valuable projects on this town of higher priority. And based on all this, the Finance Committee again voted unanimously not to reject the article, not to recommend the article.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Elizabeth Elam, 63 Whitman Road. This has been a very active topic of conversation in my house with my two children, one who just left the high school, one who's about to enter. I promised I would ask the question that we keep asking. Wouldn't it be less expensive to paint it really bright? Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, in favor of the motion?
Kurt Friedman, 24 Ridge. I do acknowledge that many drivers are growing aware of the raised crosswalk, and I've stood out and watched cars go by this crosswalk, and the majority of cars do slow down. I estimate speeds of approximately 20 miles an hour. When I drive over the crosswalk, and I live right nearby on Ridge Road, I slow to about 20 miles an hour, and that's a good speed to cross over it. Last night, I was on my way to the other side of town, and I was traveling east on William Street, signaling to go left onto Grassy Gutter. And coming west on William Street was a car that was going at a higher rate of speed, and I estimate that its speed was about 35 to 40 miles an hour. And it did not slow down for the crosswalk. This was about 6 o'clock last night. And it was a scene right out of, let's say, the Dukes of Hazzard. The entire car lifted off the ground, all four wheels, and came crashing down, bottoming out onto William Street. And because of the crown of the road, where it's higher in the middle, okay, so that means that the effective jump is greater towards the shoulder than towards the center. So the right side of the car lifted up even more, and it came crashing down. When it came crashing down,
Like that sign.
sparks came flying, and the car then kind of lurched towards me. The driver then took partial control of the vehicle, but I thought there was going to be a head-on collision. And I was only doing, at the time, I was braking, signaling left. I was maybe doing about 15 miles an hour at the time. And I don't know where this driver was from. I didn't recognize the car. I didn't know who it was. I probably would agree that most Long Meadow residents going by know of this area and slow down, but visitors may not. And I certainly am very sorry for the tragedy that occurred. I certainly do know what loss is like, and I can only imagine what it's like for this family. So because of that, could there be an inadvertent consequence where this crosswalk is protecting the safety of pedestrians, but because of its present design, could contribute towards an accident, or the damage that was likely incurred to this vehicle could cause it to malfunction somewhere else and cause another accident. So I think that we should not, we should put public safety first. $40,000 is pale in comparison to loss of life or injury. And I think that we all recognize that this is not a good design and it needs to be corrected. $40,000, maybe we should not have spent it. It's been over $200,000 so far, but it's necessary to correct a problem. I would encourage people to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Is there a question? Yes?
Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive. Both the police chief and the fire chief are here. I would be interested in hearing their opinions on this, if they would be willing to speak to it.
Okay, Chief Stankiewicz, we'll start with you. Chief Dearborn, if you have any opinions? Okay.
In the interest of public safety, we've had, since its erection of the speed hump, we have had no motor vehicle accidents, nor pedestrian collisions or injuries relating to this structure. So in my opinion, it's functioning as it was intended.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I appreciate...
Name and address,
pardon
please.
me. David Catan, 59 Prinwood Road. I agree in opposition to this, into this warrant article. I think that the speed bump is working as it's supposed to. It's such a busy area of town. You got the high school, you got the Big Y, the gas station. There's so much going on there. You have to slow down. And I think that the addition of the flashing lights and the digital speed display ought to be enough to alert people to slow down, even if they're not familiar with that intersection.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, Jose Rodriguez, 173 Ellington Road. My question is, are those flashing lights, those that alert drivers, are they currently operational, and whether or not they're operational 24/7?
Mr. Mazza, our DPW director, would probably be the best to answer that.
Okay, I think I have to lower it.
Hi, Mario Mazza, and the answer to both of those questions is yes.
Okay. We're going to alternate among all the microphones. We haven't yet heard from the green for a little while. After Mr. Gold, then we'll hear from you, Ms. Altman.
Thank you. I'm Mark Gold and live on Avondale Road. I wanted to just answer a couple of comments that I heard today. I see the group here, the town of Longmeadow, on this issue split into two groups: those who live in the area and go over that speed bump every day, and those who don't live in this area and don't go over the speed bump every day. And the comments have been, it works. The one in front of the community house also works, but it's not damaging vehicles. And so, it can be lowered and still work. I think we need something. It's a raised crosswalk, and that's what it was designed for, not necessarily something to damage cars. I don't know how many people know, but it actually slows down our emergency response vehicles. Shortly after it was put in, our town ambulance suffered over $10,000 worth of damage going over that speed bump when they weren't aware of it and they were trying to go to answer a call, I believe. There was a comment, well, since the lights have been put in, complaints are down. I think people have see that there's some action trying to be taken, and complaints have dropped because of the number of things that we've tried to do to take actions. The select board's voted a couple of times to try to get this lowered, and the only reason it's on a ballot tonight is because of what appears to be, and I think Maury did a good job of explaining, an escalating apparent cost to easing this the severity of the speed bump. But I think that the issue is, is it doing its job or is it overdoing its job? And I support that we vote for this amendment so that we can ease the speed bump. It doesn't say to eliminate it. Thank you.
Ms. Altman?
Yeah. Susie Altman at 661 William Street. The reason for this speed bump is that a woman was crossing from Grassy Gutter to Merriweather and was in the crosswalk at the time. A car came speeding down William Street and hit her This woman was dragged by the car and died almost immediately. Since the speed bump has been installed, cars and trucks have slowed down significantly. We have had no accidents. William Street is a busy street. Pedestrians, bikers, joggers, and walkers. We have children going to Blueberry Hills School, the middle school, and the high school. It can be dangerous. The speed bump saves lives. The proposal to make the speed bump smaller, costing the town $40,000, is ridiculous. Why fix something that isn't broken? Our town has many projects that need to be addressed, and this isn't one of them. I would rather pick car parts up from any speeder who ignores the good markings made by the DPW than picking up body parts. Monday afternoon, someone told me a car was barreling down the speed bump. That person said, "This car will need fixing." I said, if someone can't pay attention to the warning signs on the speed bump, I'd rather their car get damaged than our children. It obviously does what it is supposed to do. Thank you for your time and patience letting me express myself. I really hope everything works out for the best.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes. We alternate between the...
Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive. I have very mixed emotions of this. I'm an ex-fireman, volunteer. I was involved with bringing the ambulance back to Longmeadow many years ago. Many of you know that. And I've trained paramedics in a prior life. I was in a vehicle being picked up to go to New York. My driver, early on when this thing was installed, and we hit it at about 30 miles an hour, and I was sitting in the front right seat, and I hit the ceiling. I was belted in appropriately, but I hit the ceiling with my head. I wasn't injured, I don't think. Not that I know of. Am I okay? But I do have very mixed emotions. I did speak to Stephen Crane just after that happened. And Stephen said it's completely designed to spec and it meets the requirements. He said, but maybe on both sides there's a dip and that can be fixed. Well, maybe there's a problem with it. Now, there's no problem. There's nobody who disagrees with anything that was said over there with regard to the need and the safety issues, and I certainly don't. But I think there's a design issue on this particular item. People who are not familiar, I've slowed down, I don't hit it anymore, it's not an issue, nor does my driver, he knows it's there. But people coming in who are not used to it will hit it at the speed of that road, and it is dangerous at that speed. There's no question about it. The damage it did to the ambulance, that's a town vehicle, and it did damage. Just think of people from out of town. If someone hits it at road speed and does some significant damage to anybody in the car, we'll be looking at a potential lawsuit, which will cost us way more than $40,000 just to fight, even if we win. I think it needs the attention because it is a problem. We all know that if you hit it at speed, there's a problem. There's a design problem with it. It shouldn't happen. And therefore, I'm going to vote in favor of this, even though I don't want to spend $40,000. It's something that needs to be fixed. I think it has a current danger. People who are doing it at low speed will be fine, but anybody else is going to be a problem and potentially hurt themselves. I'm not worried so much about the car damage, but I am worried about potential injuries that this thing could cause. And the reason we put it in was to avoid injuries. So I will vote in favor of it, and apparently there are some things that can be done that doesn't eliminate it. I mean, it clearly still keeps it. We need to keep it, but it solves the problem, which apparently has to do with the slope on both sides of it. Even though it meets requirements, the road could probably be raised, and there may be costs associated with that. Whether the $40,000 is enough, I don't know. But it needs to be looked at from an engineering standpoint to say, how do we solve this problem? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman over there, were you in line? Okay. Question, sure. Yep.
Hi, Daniel Cohn, 66 Woodland Road. I have a fairly simple question. Who designed the Speed Mogul?
Are those all your questions?
And the follow-up is, shouldn't we make them pay for it?
Mr. Mazza.
The DPW town engineer designed it, but it is of Mass DOT standard.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry, the gentleman who was sitting was there first, please.
Andrew Berkey, 32 Williston Drive. I am an early morning runner who is extremely appreciative of the speed hump as I go down William Street, because drivers pay attention now to things that are in their periphery vision. And I am very happy that it is there, and I don't think the town should pay for other people's poor driving habits.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
Hi, Ed Zuzko from 27 Benedict Terrace. You know, if we take and fix this so that it slopes down a little more gently, say, and you can drive over at 30 miles an hour, people will try to go 40. It's only human nature. I say we keep it just where it is. It's designed to do the job.
All right, any further discussion? Sure.
Elizabeth Elam again with a question. The speed limit in school zones is 20. Is that not a school zone?
Chief Stankiewicz.
That is not a school zone, and a school zone is only, can be enforced and established in an elementary and middle school area, not the high school.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, we'll come directly to a vote. This requires a simple majority. Would everyone sit down? Sit. Ms. Altman. Thank you. Would all those in favor of the motion under Article 1 please raise your green cards? I'm sorry, Article 2. Thank you. Would all those opposed to the motion under Article 2 raise your green cards? The noes have it. The motion fails by majority affirmative vote. I shall now accept a motion to dissolve the special town meeting. Is there a second? All those in favor of dissolving, all right, the ayes have it. Thanks and have a good night. Meeting is dissolved.